At just 20 years old, Kobbie Mainoo has already done something few teenagers dare to do. He stepped into the heart of English football, looked pressure in the eyes, and didn't blink. While others his age were still learning the game, Mainoo was suddenly trusted on the biggest stages, wearing expectation like a weight on his chest. But behind the calm touch and fearless composure, insiders whisper about a very different reality. A young player pushed forward too fast, a talent forced to grow up overnight, and moments behind closed doors that changed how he sees football forever. Why did coaches put so much on his shoulders so early? What doubts followed him when the cameras turned away? And what price does a prodigy really pay for being ready too soon? And with that, we come to his story. One rise, several silent battles, and truths rarely spoken. Would you like me to continue with the next part? Number 5. The club that raised him. Too fast. Manchester United. For Kobbie Mainoo, the relationship with Manchester United was supposed to be a dream. A boy from Stockport, raised inside the academy, living the fantasy every English kid imagines. But insiders say that dream turned heavy far earlier than anyone expected. Behind the scenes, coaches began to notice something different. Mainoo wasn't just talented, he was unusually calm, almost disturbingly composed. In training sessions, senior players reportedly stopped treating him like a kid. Mistakes were no longer forgiven. Silence replaced encouragement. One youth coach later admitted that people forgot his age very quickly. The turning point came when injuries and inconsistency forced the club to look inward. Suddenly, Mainoo wasn't a prospect anymore. He was a solution. Dressing room sources recall tense meetings where his name was mentioned alongside veterans twice his age. The message was subtle but brutal. If the team struggled, the responsibility would be shared, including by the teenager. Witnesses from Carrington describe moments where Mainoo stayed behind after training, not to practice skills, but simply to sit alone in the gym. No phone, no music, just silence. One staff member recalled him saying quietly that he felt he had to play like a grown man, even when he still felt like a kid. The pressure didn't explode in public. That's what made it more dangerous. No scandals, no tantrums, just a slow internalization of expectation. When performances dipped, the criticism online was immediate. When he played well, praise arrived with a warning: don't drop off. Insiders say that was when something shifted. Mainoo stopped smiling during matches. He played safe, efficient, emotionless. For a club desperate for stability, he became a symbol. For Mainoo himself, it became the first lesson of elite football. Loyalty doesn't protect you from pressure. Even the club that raised you can become the place where innocence quietly disappears. Number 4. The national shirt and the weight of silence. When the call-up to the England national football team arrived, it was supposed to be validation. For a young midfielder, wearing the England shirt is more than an honour. It's a declaration that you belong among the elite. But people close to the camp say this moment marked the beginning of a quieter, more dangerous pressure. Inside the national setup, hierarchy is everything. Senior players speak, young players listen. And sources claim that Mainoo quickly learned how narrow the margin for error really was. One misplaced pass, one mistimed run, and the atmosphere changed. Not with shouting, but with looks. Silence. The kind that makes a teenager question every touch. Insiders recall a particular training session where expectations collided with reality. The tempo was relentless, instructions sharp, patience minimal. After one mistake, Mainoo reportedly stopped asking for the ball. Not out of fear, but calculation. He understood something vital. At this level, survival sometimes means invisibility. There were no public criticisms, no headlines. but behind closed doors, analysts compared him relentlessly to established stars. "He's mature," they said. "He can handle it." That sentence followed him everywhere. Staff later admitted that labelling him mentally strong became an excuse to demand more without checking the cost. Witnesses noticed how different he became during camps. Quieter, more reserved, always observing. One teammate reportedly joked that Mainoo spoke more with his eyes than his voice. But the joke hid a truth. He was learning to suppress emotion to avoid mistakes. Wearing the national shirt didn't break him, it reshaped him. From that point on, football stopped being just a game of instinct. It became a test of control. And the biggest lesson he learned was brutal. Talent earns you a place, but silence keeps you there. Number 3. Euro 2024, and the moment he stopped playing free. By the time Kobbie Mainoo arrived at UEFA Euro 2024, the narrative around him was already dangerous. Not just young talent, not even breakthrough star. Insiders say the word used most often was solution. And that single word changed everything. Inside the England camp, expectations hardened quickly. Analysts praised his composure, coaches highlighted his discipline, and media attention followed every training clip. What looked like admiration on the surface felt very different on the inside. One staff member later admitted that Mainoo was discussed more in tactical meetings than players 10 years older. The logic was simple and ruthless. If he could handle pressure, give him more. Witnesses recall a closed-door session after a narrow, tense match. The room was quiet. Senior players spoke briefly. Then the focus shifted to structure, positioning, responsibility. Mainoo listened without reacting, but teammates noticed something unusual. He no longer played on instinct in training afterward. Every pass became safe, every movement calculated. The risk disappeared. An insider revealed that during one match review, a coach paused the footage on Mainoo's face. Calm, expressionless. "That's maturity," he said. But privately, a performance analyst questioned whether that calm was real or learned. Because moments later, the same analyst saw Mainoo alone in the tunnel, staring at the ground long after everyone else had left. From that tournament on, those close to him say he changed his internal rules. Don't be flashy. Don't lose the ball. Don't become the reason things fall apart. The irony was cruel. The more responsibility he carried, the less freedom he allowed himself. Euro 2024 didn't expose his weakness. It revealed his discipline. But it also marked the moment he stopped playing to express himself and started playing to survive. Number 2. The injury that nobody talked about. What truly changed him didn't happen under stadium lights. It happened quietly, during a period most fans barely noticed. An injury. Not the kind that ends seasons or fills headlines, but the kind that lingers, steals rhythm, and forces a young player to doubt his own body. Sources close to the medical staff say it wasn't the pain that worried him most, it was the timing. He was finally trusted, finally central, and suddenly his body hesitated when his mind didn't. Insiders described training sessions where he completed every drill, but with restraint. No explosive turns, no reckless tackles, almost as if he was negotiating with his own muscles. Behind closed doors, conversations became colder. Not aggressive, clinical. Load management, risk assessment, availability. Words that make sense to professionals, but sound terrifying to a teenager afraid of being replaced. One staff member later admitted that no one reassured him properly. The assumption was simple. He's strong, he'll adapt. Witnesses recall a moment after a recovery session where he asked a physio a question that stuck. If I push and it goes wrong, will they wait for me? There was no clear answer. From that moment, insiders say Mainoo chose caution over expression. He protected his body and, unknowingly, his personality on the pitch. The injury healed, officially, but the hesitation didn't disappear overnight. Every sprint carried calculation. Every challenge came with memory. Football stopped being instinctive again. It became conditional. What fans saw was maturity. What he felt was fear of losing everything he had just earned. Number 1. The night he realised he was alone at the top. Those close to him say there was one night that changed everything. No match, no cameras, no noise. Just a hotel room, hours after a big win, when messages stopped coming in. Praise had already faded, attention had moved on, and for the first time he understood the truth elite football never says out loud. Insiders reveal that after a standout performance, expectations didn't reset, they doubled. The next morning's briefing wasn't congratulatory, it was demanding. New instructions, new responsibilities, no space to breathe. One staff member later admitted that success accelerated the pressure curve brutally. When you prove you can handle it once, they assume you always will. Witnesses recall how his behaviour shifted afterward. He stopped celebrating goals wildly, stopped reacting to applause. Everything became internal, controlled, professional, but also isolated. Teammates joked. He listened, smiled politely, said little. That night marked a realization. At the top, understanding is temporary. Results are permanent. And if you fall, the silence returns faster than the praise ever came. From then on, he stopped expecting protection from clubs, from systems, from narratives. He didn't harden, he simplified. Do your job. Make no noise. Leave no trace. It was the final step from prodigy to professional, and the moment innocence quietly closed the door behind him. Today, Kobbie Mainoo is still seen as one of England's most reliable young midfielders. Composed, disciplined, trustworthy. On the surface, the system worked. He adapted, he survived, he delivered. But those who have watched him closely know the cost wasn't tactical, it was emotional. Football shaped him into something efficient, but also quieter. The smile that once came naturally now appears carefully timed. The risks he once took instinctively are weighed against consequence. This isn't failure, it's evolution under pressure. His story leaves an uncomfortable reflection. Modern football doesn't just test legs and lungs, it tests silence. It rewards those who suffer quietly and penalises those who hesitate publicly. Mainoo became what the game demanded, not because he wanted to, but because he understood the rules early. And that is the real shadow behind the rise. Talent brings you into the light. Discipline keeps you there. But sometimes it's the buried voices that tell the truest story.